Welcome to another new episode. Like always, today we are here with an exciting topic that will boost your knowledge. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the main discussion.
Look at this landscape. Green suburban neighborhoods rolling right up to the base of the towering snow-capped peaks of Utah's Wasatch Range. That stunning elevation didn't come from nowhere. These specific mountains were violently thrust upward, foot by foot, over millennia, by a massive, highly active fault line. When most Americans hear the term catastrophic earthquake, they immediately think of California, the San Andreas, the West Coast. They rarely think of Utah. Yet the Wasatch Fault is currently sitting quietly right beneath this valley, heavily loaded with tectonic stress, and statistically overdue for a major rupture. And as this wide view of Salt Lake City shows, over 2 million people live, work, and sleep on the valley floor, completely dwarfed by the mountains, and located directly on top of the geological trigger that built them. The exact same geological engine that sculpted this region's beautiful scenery is actively preparing to tear it apart. Down at the street level, this threat gets much more specific. Salt Lake City has a deep architectural heritage, visible in this historic photograph of its downtown grid. For decades, the dominant construction method here was unreinforced masonry, or URM. That simply means buildings made of brick and mortar, without internal steel bars holding the walls together. California has spent the last half-century heavily retrofitting its infrastructure so that modern buildings are engineered to bend, sway, and absorb seismic energy. Utah's vast inventory of historic URM homes and businesses are entirely rigid. When extreme lateral shaking hits an unreinforced brick wall, it doesn't flex. Instead, the mortar snaps, and the brittle brick violently shatters outward, dropping the roof and the floors directly above it. Because they cannot move with the earth, these historic structures turn into heavy, rigid traps the moment the ground shifts. But the unreinforced brick is only half the problem. We also have to look at what those buildings are sitting on. Looking out across this wide, flat expanse toward the Great Salt Lake, you can see the geography of the valley floor. This basin consists of ancient, soft, saturated lakebed soil. This introduces a secondary geological threat during a magnitude 7 or higher rupture. It's a process called liquefaction. Here we can see a cross-section showing a seemingly stable matrix of soil particles securely supporting the surface. When intense seismic waves roll through this soft lakebed, the severe vibration forces shallow groundwater upward. That pressurized water wedges itself between the individual grains of dirt, erasing the friction that holds the ground together. The soil temporarily acts like a thick liquid. Whatever heavy structures are resting on top lose their bearing capacity, causing them to sink unevenly, tilt, or tear apart in opposite directions. So you have a valley floor that will turn to soup, directly underneath tens of thousands of unreinforced brick buildings that require a perfectly solid foundation to stand. Bring all of this back up to the surface, looking at the dense commercial center and the 2 million residents settling in for the evening. The Wasatch Fault hasn't experienced a major surface rupturing event in modern recorded history. Geologists refer to this long gap in activity as a seismic silence. Because no living resident has ever felt a massive earthquake here, the region has developed a deep complacency. Retrofits are delayed, population centers continue to expand, and urgency fades. Human memory spans a few generations. Geological time operates on thousands of years, steadily building up tectonic pressure regardless of whether the people above remember the last snap. The severity of America's next major earthquake will be determined by the fault line and the soil, certainly. But the true hazard is 2 million people living directly on top of a geological trap they've forgotten how to fear.
How did you like today's discussion? If you have any questions about this topic, don't forget to let me know in the comment. Stay well, stay healthy.